Welcome to Future Back Drinking, brought to you by PepsiCo and Time. I'm your host, Dr. Athina Kanioura, and as PepsiCo CEO of Latin America and Global Strategy and Transformation Officer, I believe it's incredibly important to speak with today's industry leaders about the technologies, innovations, and ideas that are certain to impact all of us. Future Back Drinking is not just a podcast, it's a journey through the now into the next. And joining me is my co-host Priyanka Aribindi. Hello, Priyanka.
Hi, Athena. It is great to be back with you today for another episode of Future Back Drinking. Our episode today brings together a lot of the themes that we've been exploring so far this season. As so many of our guests have noted, the business of design extends far beyond, a product or packaging or even a building. It encompasses entire organizations, workplaces, cities, and our society at large. And so to dig into all of this today, we have an amazing guest with us, Diane Hoskins.
Diane Hoskins is an accomplished architect and business leader, serving as the global co-chair of Gensler, the world's largest architecture and design firm. An MIT-trained architect with an MBA from UCLA's Under School of Management, Diane is known for pioneering innovative design strategies to drive advances that elevate human experience and create impactful solutions globally. She oversees Gensler's vast network of employees across over 50 offices worldwide and is recognized as a leading voice in design, sustainability, and workplace innovation. Here is our conversation. Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for joining us today. We always like to start things off with a quick cheers.
Cheers. Good to be here.
Amazing to have you. Let me start by saying that it's such an honor to talk to you. You and Andy Cohen have led Gensler through a very rare co-chair model for nearly 2 decades. We're truly curious to find out, how does that partnership actually work?
Well, first of all, it's terrific to be with you in this conversation. Thank you for inviting me. I love this question. Andy and I, we've been working together as co-leaders of Gensler for close to 20 years. And it's just sort of normal for us. I think we even did a session at one of the business schools to talk about co-leadership because it is an unusual model. I guess we're just crazy enough to think that co-leadership could work. And I think we've proven over the last 20 years that it's not only possible, but it actually has been an accelerant to our growth in our sector. We're multiple times larger than any other firm in our industry. And if you look at sort of the trajectory, we were one of the largest, but kind of on par with other firms in our industry when we took over this leadership role. And now we're in the 2 billion range, and there's not a competitor that's even a tenth of our size. So we feel that in part is due to our co-leadership model, not only at the CEO level, but in all of our key roles of leadership within our firm. We try to have that model play out, whether it's our regions or our offices, areas of practice. We feel that a co-leadership strategy actually gives us the depth, the breadth, the speed, the strategy, the range that gives us that edge. It's also about who are those leaders. It's not just the model, but it's selecting the right individuals. We really believe that it's about diversity of thinking and of the ability to challenge each other's ideas in a place where, look, when you're the CEO, you can have a lot of people saying yes to you about your ideas. When you're co-CEOs, you're pushing each other, you're amplifying each other's ideas or creating that space to be able to say, well, let's hold that one and then let's look at 3 other ways. It's not just what you do together, it's what you do separately. And then you bring it together. And then you use that as the springboard. It's not just about getting big, it's about what you do because you're big and what the opportunity is to have an impact on the world.
It's interesting you think a path to leadership looks one specific way. I'd love if you could tell us a little bit more about your journey and how you kind of made it through all the twists and turns and sort of what that gave you.
I'm from the south side of Chicago and had the opportunity to go to MIT and studied architecture, but of course, with a very, very strong tech background in science and math and all the above, because I was interested in all of it. And came back to Chicago and ended up working for a firm that was kind of at the top of its game at that point in architecture. And I think that was super foundational for me, maybe imprinted on me a bit about a large firm, about opportunity, but also that an architecture firm really can shape the future with its work, and also the kind of teamwork and complexity that one needs to be involved in to be able to do large things. And so this idea of scale, the idea of complexity, multiple roles, how all that fits together was something that really clicked for me in that environment. It's funny because after you get a couple of decades in your career, you start to understand yourself more. And I recognize that for me, seeing the big picture is really important. And that comes back to my career path. So even after that experience, I was exposed to kind of the clients being an important part of that team. And so I made the decision to go to business school and to learn about what all of the drivers are for our clients, meaning the real estate industry, the kind of corporate side of things. And even after business school, I went to work for a developer. So, again, still very interested in growing in ways that help me to see who are the players when we're talking about shaping the built environment. What are the drivers? What are the financial aspects? What are the regulatory aspects? What are the needs that are driving the projects themselves? What are the components that come into play when these decisions are being made? So with all of that, I actually went back into architecture and ultimately more on the practice leadership side, being that person who knits together these ideas. I learned I loved business development and going out and finding new clients, but also being involved in the strategic conversations that are at the very genesis of projects, and then also helping to unpack what that project could really be, maybe helping our clients stretch their ambition, not just in scale, but in what this building really can do for them, their community, their organization.
As you were talking, I was reflecting. You have described Gensler's mission as using design to elevate the human experience. So, what does it actually mean in practice when you are designing spaces that must serve both business goals and human needs?
Really, we start with the human equation, or what it means for people. Look, the profession of architecture has a great reputation, but then it also has this other reputation for architects designing things for themselves or just looking at the outside, but not really how it works on the inside for the people, for the community or the neighborhood. And those are all things that are really the antithesis of how we think about design and architecture. What is the purpose of design? What is the purpose of architecture? We're in 60 different locations. We've worked in over 100 countries. There's only 190 in the world. So when you have a footprint like that and you have a reach like that, you have to think about, what is the impact? We're impacting millions of people every day in their lives. We all spend probably more of our waking hours than we want to admit in our workplaces. And there's lots of reasons to be in the workplace, those collaborative opportunities, that ability to focus. If we can elevate that experience, if that can be a positive experience instead of one that drains your energy and sends you home in a bad mood, if it's a place where actually you're doing your life's best work, then we've contributed in ways that are lasting and are tangible. So that's really where we start. That is our assumption, is that our work is going to make a positive impact.
Just to follow up on the comment you made, you did touch on sustainability and the environmental impact. So how important is that in not just an implementation of the project, but also in the initial inception of the project?
It is at the very, very beginning. You can't just attach on a consideration around sustainability at the very end. It's got to be right up front. And so we come to the table really as a partner with our clients to talk about, well, in this new facility, how do we want to help you achieve those goals that you're so proud of and your people are so proud of? It goes into everything from energy modeling early on. And we've got a team of people, some of the best in the world. They're not architects, but they are the folks that are building our technology systems and co-creating with us some of these cutting edge tools. And one of them that's really in the sustainability arena is how we can do energy modeling at the very beginning, when it's just concepts and ideas, this shape versus that, floor to ceiling heights, overhangs, etc. So that is really giving us a leg up in terms of being able to deliver the kinds of energy savings well before even our engineers are involved. And then on the other side of the equation, we've always talked about energy efficiency. Frankly, we've been talking about that and affecting that since the 1970s. But also, and I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a real focus on what we call the embodied energy, which is almost half the energy when you're talking about energy associated with our buildings. It's the energy that's used to make the materials that we put in our buildings. We didn't even think about this back, decades ago. Well, now this is another area that we are super focused on. And really now, instead of selecting, this wood or this glass or this carpet or this ceiling, we actually now have the ability to understand what's the energy signature of every one of those categories of materials. And what we've done as a firm, we design close to 1 billion square feet of new buildings and spaces annually. And that means we are selecting lots of stuff, right? Lots of glass, lots of ceilings, lots of walls, lots of floors. So we, as the leader in our industry, took it upon ourselves to say, look, we've got to lead in this arena of driving down the embodied energy in the materials that are out there. And how did we do that? We started talking to all the various suppliers and saying, look, we are going to come out with standards that say if your material exceeds a certain level of carbon intensity, we're not going to put it on our projects anymore. And we've gone through category by category of different types of materials and set thresholds of what is acceptable on a Gensler project and what is not. So we first worked with the manufacturers to say this was what was coming. And then literally last year, we announced and published the Gensler product specifications, the GPS. And it was so well received. It has been so incredibly well received. Manufacturers appreciate the clarity, the openness, the fact we worked with them and told them beforehand that we were going to come out with those standards. But also what it does for them is they're able to say internally as a company, look, let's accelerate, let's invest in the products that are going to meet those standards, and let's start dialing down the production of these other kinds of materials that are never going to meet those standards. We took all of those materials that don't meet our standard out of the Gensler libraries. You can't even walk into a Gensler library and find a material that doesn't meet our GPS. We're very serious about it, and it has been very well received, and we're already seeing reductions because of that.
You've said before that design is data-driven now, and you did mention technology, of course. So how do you balance human intuition and creative vision with technology, 3D, digital twins, and overall metrics that can guide modern workplace design?
It's really interesting because so many times people are like, oh my goodness, if we have data and all those things, it's going to take out the creativity. Actually, the data unlocks the creativity. Just like any other discipline, people want to go fast. And when you go fast, you often replicate solutions from the past. Oh, it's always been done this way, so, we're going to do it this way. The size of a whatever is always like this, so we're going to make it that size. To challenge convention, you've got to have facts because, look, your client's going to invest $1 billion in this building. So they're not going to take chances on new ideas that have no basis other than your, intuition or whim, right? You've got to show your clients, especially on the larger decisions that are going to have a material impact on what choices they're making. You need to give them confidence that this new idea that hasn't been tried before is better than the 100 years of this other type of decision that's always been made. And I'll just give an example. When we were beginning to do research in workplace, right? The standard workplace, when we started doing that research, was enclosed offices, high cubicles, very little collaborative space. That was the typical workplace. Through our research, we were able to help our clients understand that there were barriers to collaboration, but also helping them to see that workspaces where people had collaborative areas, workspaces where there was more glass, workspaces where there was more opportunity to have the serendipitous connectivity, that those were workplaces where you saw a lot of innovation. And a client is then motivated, oh, wow, I am open to these ideas because I see the data. I'm starting to understand these trends that are way out in front and not just going to the tried and true of what has been done before. So, we see research as unlocking possibilities. Data unlocks possibility, and research unlocks ideas that give our clients confidence to try something new. Data-driven design isn't that the data is designing, it's helping to challenge convention and to break us away from what we've seen before to try something we've never seen before.
And as you were reflecting on the data and, to your point, challenging convention, what is currently challenging convention on the way we think, on the way we act and we operate is AI. And then, of course, it is transforming how we design work, how we imagine work, and how we deliver work. So what is your approach about integration of AI in the business, and how do you use it as a tool for creativity and problem solving?
AI is, and we hear this over and over again, right? It will transform every industry, every business in great ways. We're at the very, very, very beginning stages, even though AI is moving so fast and it's only been, 3 or 4 years since the launch of ChatGPT, but we're all using it in little ways, kind of along the edges. But where the real opportunity is in design is frankly beyond the edges, right? It's down into the role of the architect and what it is that we do. Imagine, for instance, if the drawings, right, these very technical drawings that we are all trained to create, if that part of our work were reduced substantially. What if that piece were more assisted by AI? Well, then that frees up time for other things, more ideation at the front end, more simulation at the front end. I always like to say that the design that you get, right, ultimately is based on the amount of time you have to do it. It's sort of like pencils down, we got to go now. Well, if we'd had another week or two, or if we'd had some ability to not only design, but also then to simulate what that might be like for people who are using it, and then to maybe compare and contrast various schemes to then see what those outcomes might be. There's so much important information about every single material. And, look, our contractor is our partner too. We specified something. They have an idea for something different that could be used in that material or not. How do we simulate what that option is about and how that might work better? I think it's going to be an exciting time of growth and learning. But our firm already is looking at the millions of dollars we're going to need to commit in our budgets for the kind of learning that is going to be needed, not just to how to push the button, but really learning all of these new modeling topologies that are continuing to emerge. That's going to be a real litmus test for design firms. There's not someone out there who's going to design this stuff for you. You've got to figure out a way of designing, implementing, integrating, and then training your teams to be able to get the most out of these new tools.
You discussed about innovation, you discussed about transformation, but of course, through these transformations, there are massive risks. So, what do you see as more the emerging challenges in the new approaches for designers and leaders?
I mean, I just talked about spending millions of dollars training people. Well, what if you're training them in the wrong thing, right? There's decisions one has to make and have conviction around, and one can be proven wrong. And these decisions are significant in terms of the resources that need to be committed. We're in a zone where there's the great potential, and then there's also how do you handle changes and pivots that you're going to need to make. So the need for just being able to pivot, being able to be flexible is greater and greater. What that means in terms of organizations, I think we're used to having lots of teams, exploring things, but you can't micronize so much that you're not able to do things collectively as well. I'll just give an anecdote that I find so fascinating, and it's no secret that we've designed the headquarters for OpenAI. And when we talk about trends and where things are going, it's sometimes important to also look at I'll call it the weaker signals, the signals that are coming from some of the leading companies. And I think we would all say they are certainly one of the leading companies. They chose to create a very human-centered workplace where people are at the forefront, using wood, using warm materials. Biophilia is abundant in the OpenAI space. Tons of books, places where people come together, whether it's for coffee and so forth. But it is kind of your best hotel experience. But really seriously, you'd think, wow, they're going to be like super high-powered tech and it's going to feel like working in a machine. But I think they realize that the people creating art machines, the people creating are human beings, and reminding them that it's their humanness that is their greatest asset.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we are ready for the lightning round. At the end of each episode, we like to ask our guests a series of quick hitting questions to get to know them more at a personal level. Diane, are you ready?
Sure. Fire away.
Okay. So what's a city you think is getting the future of urban life right and one that still has work to do?
I live in Washington, D.C., and the more I live here, the more I love it. And it's because it is such a walkable city. It is a wonderfully human city and with lots of neighborhoods and lots of good food. And wherever you live, you're in walking distance of a coffee shop. You're in walking distance of a grocery store.
What is one innovation that has inspired you recently?
I can't wait for the robot that's going to do the dishes. So that's what I'm waiting for. But just on an internal standpoint, we do a lot of research at Gensler, and we give research grants to our people. So we incentivize our staff to do research. Right now, we've been involved in looking at how do you transform these empty office buildings into residential buildings. And we are at the forefront of that conversation from the standpoint of the design community. And it's because we had done research on transforming an office building to residential buildings many, many years ago. And it kind of went on the shelf. So one of our team members in Canada this was during COVID and all of this empty buildings kind of thing was going on. And his client was asking him, how do I transform this into that? And he did a Google search, literally a Google search. And the research of one of his colleagues at Gensler showed up as an idea. He took that idea and turned it into an algorithm that you could use to study a building. And within, a half hour, you can determine if it's a good candidate to turn this office building into a residential building. Well, that changed what Calgary is doing, and now they have policies and incentives to transform empty buildings into residential buildings. But that was a Gensler research project that would have really kind of gotten lost in the ether, but is now a real value to communities across the United States and globally as well.
So what's one leadership lesson you've learned the hard way?
I'll just say, I won't mention names, but there's a project that I really wanted us to win, and we didn't. And honestly, it was only recently that I finally understood why we didn't win that project. I was talking to the woman from the client group, and she shared something with me about the person who made that decision as to which firm to use. And she said he always wanted to see things in a way that wasn't over the top, that was very kind of feet on the ground, humble. And of course, when we tried to win this project, we were like way over the top. We were like, everything in the kitchen sink. And we probably should have come in a way that really touched on his values and really connected into kind of that simple way of thinking about things that made him feel comfortable about a decision like that.
So it wouldn't be future back drinking if we didn't ask you this question. So if you could choose one person to have a drink with, who would it be and why?
I would say, and this isn't meant to be sentimental, but, our founder, Art Gensler, passed away 2-3 years ago. And I guess, one, I would want to share my appreciation for just the incredible values that he put in place that continue to be core to our culture today, but also the business practices that he had the wisdom to put in place that continue to safeguard our amazing strength. And also to share with him kind of how we built on things that might have been small at one point, but have become a major part of who we are. And also, he always had great ideas. I'd love to hear his ideas.
Thank you so much for joining us. So cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure to have a talk with you. And I would have so many questions to ask you as well. I mean, you are amazing people. We could flip the table.
We can have a part 2.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you. Oh my God, what a great conversation.
It was incredible. There were 2 big things that stood out to me. One, of course, is that co-CEO model, and that seems to be throughout Gensler's organization. Really, that element of bringing the best of ideas and having a collaborative partner was so interesting to me. And the second thing that really stood out was actually in her anecdote about OpenAI and their work on the offices that they built there. The fact that as all of these workplaces innovate and bring in these new technologies, the fact that they care so much still about being human-centered and fostering workplaces that allow people to collaborate. And that stuck with me as something that is really heartening, I think, to see.
So true, so true. Thank you for listening to Future Back Drinking. We hope you truly enjoyed this conversation. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected with us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, take care.